Good morning. We'd like to welcome you all to the webinar today. We're going to look at best practices for remote work as we are working to support the system during our COVID-19 experience. My name is Amy Julian. I am with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support, and I will be one of your presenters today. Also joining me is Jennifer Phillips, and she is also with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support here at Illinois State University. As we move through the day, I want to just go through a little housekeeping items, and then we'll be getting into the presentation. First of all attendees are in listen only, and so we will just be muting you to ensure good sound quality. I would like you to take a minute right now and introduce yourself by typing your name in the chat box, and that will allow us to see who's all here. In addition, if you do have questions, please post those in the question box, and we will be able to address those questions. If we get through the webinar and there are unanswered questions, we will be putting together a Q&A document from this webinar, and we'll be releasing that with a survey and with the recording and all of the resources that we share today. So a couple things I wanted to make you aware of is, yes, this webinar is being recorded, and we will be sharing the PowerPoint with all live links, and we also put together a top 10 tips or top 9 tips document for you to support you as a resource. With that, let's kind of go through the agenda. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to look at best practices that you can put into work immediately. We want to help you get up and running or become more comfortable with a lot of these different resources. We're also going to do a quick review to enable remote work. So there's some technology out there that can support you, and we'll do some questions to see where you are in your knowledge base of understanding that particular technology. And then we will allow time for questions. As I said, if you have questions, put those in the question box. Due to the volume of individuals on the call, we are not going to unmute people. And just a little plug as we move forward, this is a 3-part series. Today is really looking at some tips that you can use. Next week, we're going to look at tips for leading a virtual team. And then the 3rd week, we're going to talk about bringing your best self to the virtual workplace. So self-care is absolutely important as we are working all remotely. A couple extra resources I want to talk to you about would be just materials will be posted on the ICSPS website, and we'll also be posting this to WorkNet. And then the tip sheets will be available for download following this webinar as well. And everything will be on our site and also on the WorkNet site for those of you who are familiar with WorkNet. So with that, I'd like to hand the floor over now to Jennifer Phillips, and she's going to start walking us through some of our great best practices for remote work.
Good morning, Amy. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being on. We wanted to be responsive during this uncertain time and help people feel more comfortable working remotely. So the tips for today's webinar are really geared a little bit more at the individual level, and as Amy just mentioned, next week we'll be doing a webinar that's about leading and managing remote teams. The list and the information that's compiled in this webinar and in the tip sheets that will be on the website later have been are a compilation and a synthesis of reviewing more than 40 articles and websites in the last couple of days. So this is kind of a best of the best, and trying to do the work so that you don't have to plow through this information. A lot of this is common sense, but in uncertain times, it's really good to have some of these things at the forefront of your mind. So just let me read through very quickly some of our 9 best practices for remote work. The first one is really thinking about reprioritizing your work plan and focusing on the things that you can do during this time period. Getting your work from home, or WFH, infrastructure set up. Creating workspaces. Adhering to those routines that help us be productive. Setting work boundaries. Being strategic about the communication to your colleagues, your supervisors, and your teams. Focusing on the positives of remote work, not forgetting to neglect workplace culture, and taking this time to learn some new skills or brush up on old ones. What we're going to do next is quickly go through each one of these with a little bit more information. You will notice that the slides are embedded with hyperlinks. We've tried to make this as meaty as possible so that you can take the document that'll be found on the website and do some work at your own leisure and click through some of these sites. But with that said, focusing on your output and reprioritizing your work plan. Just some simple tips. Right now, we are all trying to do our jobs wherever and however we can. Being proactive and being in that mindset is essential. Thinking about how to streamline, thinking about what are those essential work tasks, what's the focus that you can do while working remotely. Obviously, there are things that can't be done, and eliminating some of those non-essential meetings, figuring out how to really trim down your to-do list. Thinking about how to consolidate using fewer collaboration tools. I think one of the things that's kind of happening right now is a rush to look into different technologies, but I would definitely recommend having a kind of a streamlined or team effort where you're agreeing on what technology to collaborate with. We will go into more detail on that next week. Thinking about how to be disciplined, clarifying your team rules, making sure that everyone knows how to use them. Again, we'll go into a little bit more detail next week on that. There's a ton of great information about how to be more efficient with meetings. It's kind of a holy grail, but we've got lots of tips and information at the tail end of this. One of the things that I have done as a consultant over the last 10 years is really focusing on how to prioritize your to-do list. We've got a really great hyperlink there about analyzing your own to-do list and thinking about how to think about what you're going to produce by the end of the day, how you're going to share that with your colleagues and your supervisors. This is just a good quote that in a remote work environment, you're entirely judged by the volume, quality, and timeliness of your output. In this way, remote work is a great equalizer. You may find it gives you an opportunity to shine. Just another way to kind of get your head wrapped around remote work. The second best practice is getting that work from home infrastructure set up. This is also something where, given the number of people on this call, we probably have a lot of wide variety of people with different hardware at home. But thinking about, does your organization have its IT helplines open? Is that available to you? For those of you that are used to working with second monitors but didn't bring a docking station or a second monitor at home, there are ways to order some of those things online if your work allows that. Headphones can be your new best friend, especially if you have children at home or a spouse also working, a partner working in the same environment. We've got lots on technology tools, and we'll get to that in a minute. Making sure that your internet is strong enough to do the work that you need to do, and just being mindful of the fact that sometimes the video calls take more bandwidth than a traditional audio call. Lastly, just don't forget how powerful your phone is. Many of the technologies we're going to talk about have mobile apps. It's a way to have essentially two pieces of hardware working toward the same end in terms of your computer and your phone. I'm not going to go read through some of these in the interest of time, but people can go through them at their leisure. We tried to sprinkle some good cartoons in here as well, but you really do have to bring the discipline to keep the distractions away while you're working from home. The third best practice is really creating that workspace. This is a common sense one, but in some ways your head is really your most important workspace. You need to have your head in the game to stay focused in a remote environment and really avoid distractions. You should also think about where you can reasonably work. For you personally, what's your ideal work environment, and how can you lean into staying productive while working from home? Thinking about how you're working when there's multiple people in the house. Amy and I both, put out the call to other members of our family today to stay off the internet while we're on this call. One silly one, but it's important to say, do not work in your bed. You probably will not be productive there, and try your best to avoid distractions so you can stay focused at work. I think the biggest one right now for all of us is probably being distracted by the news. Adhering to routines is also pretty common sense. but it is essential to develop rituals and have a disciplined way of starting the day. That means starting and having an end time, doing the things that you would normally do when you go into the office. It will help your productivity immensely. There's some great resources that are embedded in here if you want to go deeper. There are a couple important do's and don'ts. Do take regular breaks. Don't stay on your computer for 8 hours at a time just because you think you need to do that. You should be thinking about how the rhythm that you had in the office, you shouldn't neglect just because you're working at home. As I said before, really try and think about a workstation. That workstation can be flexible, especially with other people in the house, but think about where you're going to be the most productive. I'm not going to go into these in the interest of time and move on to the next one. So I've talked to a number of colleagues over the last couple of days about the fact that they feel like they're working 24/7. As someone who's worked in this space and done consulting, it is essential to set some work boundaries. You should try and set some office hours. You should be very clear to let your supervisor and your colleagues know. This is a time where no one should be over-promising. We should all be working hard, but be careful not to over-promise during this time. It's an essential skill, but learning how to say no well. Using your calendar strategically is another tip here. You can time block for tasks that may not be meetings, but that is a way to signal to your colleagues and teammates and your supervisors what you're doing during this time. And as I mentioned before, take those necessary breaks just like you would at the office, and don't shortchange mental health. And we have an upcoming webinar on April 8th related to that. This is just a reiteration of how important it is to set those routines for the day. They really do help you stay productive. Something that I do routinely as a consultant is time block my time. It's a way to, and this is also something that you can signal to your colleagues. If you block out time on your calendar where you're going to be checking email, or you're going to be returning calls, or sort of holding office hours, or that you need time to write something or think about something, using your calendar to do those time blocks is an important communication signaling mechanism, especially during this time. And that kind of gets us into deeper thoughts about being strategic about communication right now. As I mentioned earlier, we've read and reviewed a number of different resources for you for this webinar. But this particular resource I would recommend to everyone to read carefully. It's about strategic communications within a remote environment. And this is where really being consistent and having good communication etiquette during this time period is essential. And I just want to, so initially we were going to put a lot more information here, but we put the hyperlink here and the 5 most important things. Number 1, do not conflate brief communications and clear communications. Just be mindful of shorthand messages right now. Make sure that when you send an email, you're doing it judiciously and not sending 10 in a row because you've forgotten to say something the first time. So really think about how to be clear in any of the communications that you're sending out to people. Don't bombard your team with messages. I think a lot of people I've talked to over the last couple of days feel that their inboxes are just overflowing. And this is where, there's some tips that people can use shorthand to say, I've read this. Actually, I'm going to get to that in just a second, but don't bombard your team with messages. We're going to go into this in deeper detail next week, but establish those communication norms. This is something, if you are a manager right now, thinking about what you can say and sort of what norms and rules you can push out to your team in terms of communication during this time are important. We're also going to be talking about some of the technology tools in the space in a second. Thinking about finding some hidden opportunities in written communications. That's just, how you can kill a couple birds with couple birds with one stone when you're writing something, so that you're really trying to get someone's attention in a short and meaningful way. And then finally, like creating some of those intentional spaces for celebration. We're going to get to that when we talk about work culture. So this is a graphic from McKinsey that I thought was helpful to share, just sort of delineating some of the different types and communication channels that are out there that are crucial for remote working. And I put one of my own pro tips on the side that when you're sending emails back and forth or using the chat functions, your team can come up with some norms around shorthand, like NNTR, no need to respond, right? That's really important so that you're not continuing needlessly an email change that is really kind of done. Thinking about how you can use the email and chat to let people know that you need a response in a certain time period. And really thinking about how to use those subject lines intentionally to get your colleague or your supervisor's attention. So this is a more fun one to talk about in terms of remote work. There's a lot of flexibility that comes with remote work, and especially during this time that's kind of stressful and there's a lot of uncertainties out there. Really figure out what energizes you, take those micro breaks, think about ways to take advantage of reclaimed time. So if you had a commute, half an hour commute, that's a load of laundry that you can be putting in, and it's something to be thankful for. And one of the things that we've got a couple resources in our web links at the end around being flexible, especially with kids out of school and out of daycare centers. There will be disruptions, and managing those disruptions and thinking about how to have those office hours during times that work for your family schedule is really important. This is just a reminder to be kind to yourself, right? This is a quote from Oprah's magazine, but with so many people working from home, the bottom line is we probably will not be as productive as we're used to being. To minimize frustration, it's important to reset your expectations around what productivity looks like. All productivity doesn't go out the window, but you need to be flexible and adapt. Just a good words to live by right now. This slide is a little messy and too full of words, but we thought they were important, and they're full of really important hyperlinks for you. Especially if you do not work alone, if you work in teams or distributed teams or sort of multi-site teams, making sure that you are touching base with your coworkers in informal ways is very important during this time. So creating that virtual water cooler, just as a way of example, our team has done that in Microsoft Teams, where people are posting personal things or things at the end of the day to make your colleagues smile or laugh. I can't overemphasize how important this is during this time. The second major point that we wanted to mention on this on the webinar is that the research on emotional intelligence and emotional contagion, which is kind of an ironic word to use today, really tells us that employees look to their managers for cues about how to react to sudden changes or crisis situations. So if you are a manager on this call, and we will be talking about this a lot more next week, the way that you are communicating can help alleviate or relieve stress and helplessness that some of your employees are feeling right now. So I don't want to go into too much more detail. There's a lot of great resources here, and we'll go into this a little bit more next week. And the last of our 9 best practices is focus on being a continuous learner during this time. It's a time to brush up on skills that you may think you know, but maybe you want to get to a different pro level. And it's time to learn some new ones for those of us that aren't as familiar with some of the technology related to productivity or chat or video conferencing, all of those kind of things. So it's really important right now. It's a good time to do this, and we're going to get into that in just a second. Amy, I'm going to pass it back to you for part 2.
Excellent, thank you. So as we move into part 2, I want to just reiterate that everything that we're sharing will be shared with everyone. So if you registered, and it will also be available on our website, you will get an email with the recording, with the webinar, with the links, and with some additional resources that we've put together. So just to clarify that, I know we've had a couple questions along that realm. So technologies to facilitate remote work, there are a lot of things that are available to us that we can use to really facilitate a virtual team or a virtual workspace. We have Office Essentials, file sharing, virtual meetings, instant messaging and chat, and project management platforms. And so these tools, this little picture there, that's actually a document. We're going to be sharing that with you, and it divides it into those areas. So you'll get resources on Office Essentials, on file sharing, on virtual meetings, on instant messaging and chat, and on project management platforms. And what that does is gives you options in those areas and then direct links on how-to videos to use those resources. So we are really building off of what is already available out there, but we wanted to give it to you in one spot. The next thing we're going to look at is free, low-cost remote work technologies. And this is something that are out there now. This is a response that the private sector has done in response to COVID-19. And I want to take a moment here and do a little, do some polling. So the Log Me In is the GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting platform. Zoom, many of you have seen that suite for webinars as well. There's a whole Google suite, there's a Microsoft suite, and then there's a WebEx suite. So I'd like to ask the audience just a couple questions. So we're going to launch this poll. Go ahead and answer that. Seeing some great responses coming in. Going to give it another few seconds, so that will allow us to get everyone's responses. Okay, just 2 more seconds and then we're going to close that up. Okay. How about what we're seeing? What we're seeing is about 45% of you have not seen that program before, 14% have seen or used, others have used it, and 32% say yes, but a little, and about 10% say you're a power user. So let's look at that from the WebEx. How many of you have used WebEx before? You guys are faster this time. So we're looking at about 54% of you have not seen this application. 10% have only seen it and used it with others. 28% have used it a little, and 8% are power users. So we do have some great power users out there. All right, last one. Let's close that one. Last one we're going to look at here is Microsoft Teams. So how many of you have used Microsoft Teams? I will say that as we use these polls, everyone gets a little bit quicker as we go. That's fantastic. So we'll close that, and it says about 85% of you have voted on that one. Again, 51% have never seen this, 12% have seen it, seen others use it, 28% yes, but only a little, and then 10% is the power user. So I'm guessing our power user crew is our same power user crew. So what we're going to do is we're going to explore each of these, and we're going to talk a little bit about them, and then that sheet that we just showed you has some great links to them as well, and we'll give you personalized tutorials, because each of these companies not only want to provide these resources to you free, but they also want to show you how to use them, so when we come out of this, when we move past this and the world turns back right side up again, that you'll want to buy those products. So Jennifer, I'll hand it back over to you and talk. Oh, well, we have low-cost internet. So this is the other thing. If you have internet in your area, or if you don't have internet in your area right now, due to the COVID-19 outbreak, and there is a lot of companies providing free or no-cost internet. And it's going to vary on where you are in your area. For example, Jennifer's up near the Chicago area, so she has different internet providers than I would down in central Illinois. And so we encourage you to click on this link and see if there is free or no-cost internet in your area. This is also something for those of you who work with a constituency who is looking to be virtual learners as we move forward, or virtual customers. This can assist you in serving those customers, because when you're talking with your students, some of them might not have had internet in their homes before, or some of your clients or customers might not have had internet in their homes before. Now they have that opportunity to get internet. So that's a great resource that we wanted to be sure we provide to you. And now I'm going to hand that back over to Jennifer.
All right, thanks, Amy. So what we were going to try and do is walk you through, Amy, a couple slides back showed you a document that is going to be like our tip sheet for technology tools for remote work. And for the next couple slides, we're going to walk through those different buckets. And as Amy also mentioned, all of these sites and the hyperlinks that we've embedded in this document are going to take you right to amazing, very easy to use tutorials. Some are video based, some are document based, but the essence of these is that they are meant to get you up and running as fast as you possibly can. The first one may be a no-brainer, but in case it's not, we wanted to make sure that people know that both Microsoft 365 and Google have terrific tutorial platforms. So you might be a power user in Excel, or think you're a power user in Microsoft Excel, but if you want to take this time and really become like a pro level user, there are some fantastic short tutorials and classes that you can do to get even stronger. For many of you, I know in the WIOA community, people have been starting to use Google Docs as a way to do joint editing. You do not necessarily have to have a Gmail email address to use the Google Suite. And again, these both companies have amazing free training resources. So, you know, what you see on your slide right now are just screenshots of what you're going to see if you go to these hyperlinks. So the second bucket of technology tools that we wanted to share with you today is about file sharing. So many of us, many of you, I'm not included since I'm already a remote worker, but many people last week literally were leaving their offices and scrambling to figure out like what files, paper files do I need to take? Am I going to take my monitor home? And one of the things that is difficult is when an organization doesn't have a virtual private network or sort of a remote way for workers to get into a company or an organization's server, all of a sudden file sharing and doing collaboration with more people in your organization becomes much more difficult. So we wanted to share 4 resources that are out there that are all essentially free, right? Right now, and the world is changing rapidly, but almost all of these documents that you're seeing on your screen have free versions. So Microsoft OneDrive, Microsoft SharePoint, Dropbox, and Google Drive are all essentially remote folders where you can share documents with your colleagues. I am going to go to the next page so you can see what one looks like. Sarah, two actually. So I have pictures here of the one that is right here on the left part of your screen is a Dropbox picture, and the one on the right part of the screen is a picture, a screenshot from Microsoft. What you're going to see is you can have members, you can create folders, you can upload and change versions. And I'm going to get to some of the productivity issues in a second related to joint editing. But these, if you don't have a VPN and you don't have a way to share files with your team, and you're not considered a power user right now, it's really worth taking a look at some of these, figuring out which one works best for you, and doing some of the tutorials. So the bucket of technology tools is virtual meetings. This is just exploding right now. All of these companies have also recently opened up their platforms to have free accounts. There are some, restrictions on some of them, but essentially you could use any of the 4 of these for free right now. And they are Zoom, Google Hangouts, which is also referred to as Google Hangout Meet, Cisco WebEx, and GoToMeeting, which is the platform that we're on right now. Again, all of these have fantastic tutorials. This is just a picture of what is actually possible on a Zoom meeting. Most educational institutions in the post-secondary space have created free accounts for all of their students and faculty, and are working on creating their digital learning platforms using Zoom. And just a fun kind of pro tip to share: in Zoom, you can actually change your background, your virtual background, and upload crazy pictures or videos for fun. And in Teams, you can actually blur your background. So if you're in a home environment and you need to get on a video call and you don't want people to see that you're working from a desk in your bedroom, you can blur that environment. Right now, I don't believe that's available on Cisco or GoToMeeting. And I'm kind of circling this if you need a laugh. There is a very funny video that Zoom did of the things that can go wrong on a Zoom video if you click this hyperlink. Next week, when we're talking about leading and managing virtual teams, we'll get much deeper into how to run an excellent virtual meeting and all of our tips and tricks for that. So the next bucket is around instant messaging and chat. Both Google Hangout and Microsoft have this chat function, so you can use the hyperlinks that were a couple slides ago to learn more about those. But Slack is one that people might have heard of, and Slack is a collaboration hub that lets you essentially replace email and sort of text your colleagues in a project. You can create channels, which are just another way of saying like a work topic. So if you've got 5 different projects with 5 different people on each of those projects, you can create a channel and create ways to chat with people in real time, almost like texting. Cisco Jabber is Cisco's version of that instant messaging and chatting function. Going back to the best practices for remote work in terms of being strategic about communications, this is where this technology tool can be a game changer in terms of reducing the number of emails that are in your inbox. So if you really want to have the inbox be sort of, prioritized for sharing documents, sharing higher level work, and putting all of the things that you might have gone to your colleague's office or cubicle to say to them before in a chat, it's one way to kind of streamline the traffic, the communication traffic that you might have. And here's what this looks like. This is a version, this is the example of Slack. As I mentioned before, if I'm circling right here where it says channels, you can see there's different projects, different people in here, and it's essentially, silly, like, oops, sorry, you can, ask a question that may not be, something that you'd want to put in an email to bother a colleague or a supervisor. Lastly, there are project management platforms. This is probably more speaking more to like the managers that are on this call right now in terms of what is available at your company. I know that DCEO, Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, has Microsoft Teams. These are platforms that are essentially bundling many of the technology functions that we were just talking about. So there is a virtual chat, instant message function. There is a way to file share. There's a way to do video calls on these four, and they are Microsoft Teams, Basecamp, Trello, and Asana. There are other platforms out there, but we were trying to stick to the ones that are sort of highest reviewed, most popular. And what does this look like? This is an example of what Microsoft Teams looks like. And you can see that you can, as I mentioned before, about thinking about your phone and your computer as two powerful tools. All of the technology tools that we've mentioned all have app functions where you can be working on both. Like, so if you don't have a second screen, you could think of your phone as a second screen. This one is essentially, I can't see the file, I didn't put a file sharing picture up here, but Microsoft Teams does the video, it does file sharing, it does the instant messaging, and it's all in one bundle. This is, again, more of a question for managers on the call in terms of what your organization may have access to during this time, because these are mostly not free. Amy, I think we are ready to take some questions.
Okay, thank you. So I've answered a lot of the questions that have come through. A lot of it have been about accessibility of information. And if you do have questions now, let's please post those in the question box. And then the last poll I'd like to do is just to ask you, and I realize I didn't share the last one, so did you find this presentation helpful today? Because this will help us determine if we're on the right track. In addition, I want to talk about a couple things that you're going to get. So you will get this webinar that is recorded. You will also get the handout sheet that we talked about. In addition, the webinar will be, you'll get the recording. You'll also get a PDF that has all the links in it. So all those links that you've been seeing, that Jennifer's been talking about, you'll be able to look through those in your own time. In addition to that, there's going to be a survey link in that email that you get, and that survey, I really encourage you to please fill out, because when you fill that out for us, we take those things very seriously, and we're going to be looking at how we can continue to roll out professional development to meet your needs in this very upside down time that we're in. So I'll give everybody just another 5 seconds. And then I'm going to share. So several of you have learned a lot, and a few of you knew a lot, but you're learning something, and only one said there was nothing new here. So thank you all. I'm glad that we're hitting the mark. And let's go over here and look at their, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say one, if you don't have questions coming in, one question that I'll pose to the audience is there anything that you want me to open on any of these hyperlinks and do like a mini demo or go deeper on?
So with that, go ahead and post those in. We do have some questions coming in, so let's look at these real quick. They're asking, what is the best platform to host a webinar? We are not selling a product, so I don't know that we're going to say the best. There are several of these platforms that do have webinar functions. and really pick the one that's best for you. And honestly, this is a great time to really explore because you have access to a lot of things that before would cost money. So see which one you like the best. But as people who are working for the state of Illinois, we are not recommending one over the other. That's why we're showing a vast array of what's out there.
And I just put the
Jennifer,
slide
anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just put the slide back on the screen of the 4 biggest ones that, are most popular, highest reviewed. I'm a Zoom user, Amy's a GoToMeeting user, and the state and Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, they're WebEx users. Schools right now, K-12 is exploding on the Google Hangout Meet side. I think that's also popular on the post-secondary space. They all have very, very similar functions. The console panels, the control panels are very self-explanatory. And if you haven't used one before, try one out with a family member. I make my husband test out technology with me constantly before I, use it with a client. So, if you've got partners or kids at home, you can test some of this technology out that way. The final point that I'll make there is that it's worth this, Amy, this is a shameless plug for next week. It is worth signing up for next week's webinar for leading and managing virtual teams, because we are going to go into best practices on how to actually manage one of these meetings.
Our next question is, will you address the importance of working from home and taking advantage of physical activity? I know you spoke about not working from bed, but working from home can cause depression, and a great deal of things for depression is physical activity. Get up, move around, find tasks that you like doing when you're standing. And yes, we will be, and I'll speak to this, and then Jennifer, I'll let you speak to this, our whole third webinar, the whole third webinar that we're talking about bringing your best self to the virtual workplace is going to be talking about the importance not only of physical activity, but about a mindfulness and about making sure you're setting those boundaries. So we did skim on that today, but there is a lot to be said for being sure you go out and take a walk and be sure that you're getting physical activity. A lot of us have heard on the news that our pets are very excited to have us home. That's great. Take them for a walk, take them out, get out and do things, because we do have to remain not only engaged in work, but also healthy in our minds and our bodies. Jennifer, anything you want to add to that?
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you mentioned the April 8th webinar. If we can, we'll try and push out some of those information and resources that we're collecting on the ICSPS website before April 1st and April 8th. But do not forget to be kind to yourself during this time. Some things might be more efficient, some things might be less efficient. Taking time, like trying to think about how many times you would have gotten up from your desk in your office. You should be doing that now. You should stretch, take a breath, get fresh air if you can, and all of those things. And we'll go into more depth on that on April 8th.
Thank you. Here, this is a question. Did you say we can set up Zoom login for clients? It's free for everyone. And as an educator, if you're in the educating platform, it's free. Jennifer, do you want to add to that?
If I'm understanding it correctly, like you can set up your own account for Zoom. I think the free accounts right now you can have up to 300 people on a meeting. You can have, you can use Zoom literally for one-on-one. Actually, all 4 of these virtual meeting platforms, you can use as for one-on-one, 5-person calls, 300-person calls. I will say there is a difference, and we'll get into this next week. There's a difference between having like a staff meeting call virtually and hosting a webinar. So those are 2 different types of activities, and we'll get into that a little bit more next week.
And some platforms, like the GoTo platform, has a separate, like you can have a GoToMeeting which has different permissions, and then you have GoToWebinar. So understanding each of those and looking, and Google Suite is very much like that. They have the Hangout, and then they also have other variations within the Google Suite, which we've used quite a few times. So there's a lot out there for you all to take advantage of. So I do encourage you, when you get this PowerPoint, start clicking those links and spend a little time. I understand that we're all busy, and I understand that a lot of us are kind of in triage mode right now with work. How do we best serve our clients? How do we move forward? A small tutorial, and a lot of these, especially in the Microsoft Suite and the Google Suite, are limited to little 3-minute tutorials. They will help you improve your productivity and your understanding of these products so much better than anything that we can talk about for an hour. We just wanted to show you all of these options because there's a lot of things out there to support you.
And I don't think I mentioned this, but LogMeIn, which is on the screen right now, is the parent company for GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar.
Okay, so they would like to have a demo on Zoom.
On Zoom?
Mm-hmm.
Amy, do I have permission to show the funny Zoom video?
Sure. I can't remember which one. I've seen a couple funny videos, but yeah, sure.
So let me open. Oops. Here we go. Amy, can you see the Zoom website on my screen? Okay, perfect.
Yes, I can.
This one happens to be on virtual backgrounds. It's a little tutorial with a video of how you can change your virtual background. I'm going to go ahead and play it. It's it's 33 minutes, just like Amy was saying before.
Available for your meetings, webinars, and your Zoom rooms. It's supported on Windows, Mac, Linux, and iOS devices. To get started, log into your web portal at zoom.us. Once you're logged in, navigate to your settings on the left-hand menu. And in your settings, click on or scroll down to In Meeting Advanced. Under In Meeting Advanced, you'll find the virtual background feature. You enable it by clicking the slider to the right. And the next step, we'll log into our desktop application and configure our virtual background. Once you're logged into your desktop client, click on your Settings tab. And first, take a look at the video. To get the best results from the virtual background, we'll want to make sure that our video is bright and evenly lit. This lighting is too dark and will result in something like this. This lighting is way too bright. This lighting is much better. When applying my virtual background image or video,
so as you can see, I think we can show the whole thing. As you can see, they are very descriptive and they're very hands-on. Another group have asked for just some more information on Slack and Jabber.
Sure. So Jabber, I can't speak to as much because I'm not a Jabber user, but I am a Slack user, and I will open up Slack. Sorry, just getting to the right spot here. So the link that's in here is going to take you right to the top 5 tips for getting started. There's a download right here for how to use it. Let's see if I have a screenshot. The screenshot for Slack looks like this. And I don't know if it makes sense to have, let's see, I'm not going to open my personal Slack right now, but it's really easy to use. You can create a free account. You invite people on your team to join Slack, and they literally, they show up here, and you can start messaging like almost immediately. It's just a really great way, as the slide says, to save precious time, right? To really cut back on that overflow in your inbox. Excellent. And if people are interested in this, maybe we can have some more resources online. But you're not a Slack.
We did have.
I can't actually. You know what I could show? I'm going to show instead of Slack. Amy, is it okay if I quickly show what Microsoft Teams looks like?
Yeah, that was the next question. Could you talk a little bit about Teams and what Teams has. And then there has been a question while she's getting that set up about, do we have to get approval to use some of these platforms through Do It? I think that depends on who you are and where you are. So I know that there are certain restrictions, and for example, Microsoft Teams, for us, we can't share a team with DCEO, and DCEO cannot share a team with us. You have to have those credentials to have that privacy and those virtual boundaries. But what that does allow us to do is both be working and sharing within our intimate teams. So I don't know. We'll follow up and we'll ask, Do It. But I think it depends on where you're at. If you're sitting at a college, if you're sitting at a non-for-profit, or if you're sitting at a state agency, does determine what your parameters are. And for example, our IT at ISU has different things that they recommend over, say, somebody who is at a community college like Heartland, who is our neighboring school. So she's got us all set up there.
All right, so this is getting a little personal, but this is the ICSPS Microsoft Teams page. You can see that right now we've got three channels. We have a general, we've got our virtual happy hour, which is super cute, where people are showing like pictures of them building their own desks, work environments, you know, the Friday night Coronita beer, dirty dishes, like don't leave your dishes in the sink. That's the new home work environment. And I think there were some cute pictures of dogs, right? So this is our virtual happy hour space. You can see on the virtual professional development team, we've got 4 of us out of the 8 people on the staff that are working on this. And, you know, this is me chatting with Amy right before this started. I think these are final. I'm done with changes. Are you? It wasn't worth, that's not worth sending an email and jamming up Amy's email box. You can, it's fantastic where you can actually attach the documents. We can jointly edit, right? Here's the webinar. Amy, you can download it, you can open it in SharePoint, we can comment on it, right? There are ways to, so all of this is like a fantastic platform for joint work, right? So Amy, Martha and I all were editing this at the exact same time, and it automatically saves all of our changes in Microsoft SharePoint within Teams. So this is an example of a platform that really allows you to do kind of everything in one. Most companies and organizations that buy Microsoft 365 should have access, free access to Microsoft Teams. It's something as a manager you may want to ask about. Just, you know, in terms of the dashboard here, you've got, you can see all the activity, the chat, the teams, where you've got the work channels. You can give people assignments, which we as a team haven't done. It's really great for anybody in the post-secondary space. This pairs right to your calendar. You can do calls. I could call any one of these people, video or audio, on my team instantly, and you can see all the files that we're starting to share. One pro tip, if you want somebody, if you don't think somebody's in Teams right now, if you do, I'm gonna type it in, like if I type Amy right now, that's gonna go to Amy's inbox, so she gets a message that there's activity in Microsoft Teams. So it's a little duplicative, but if you need to get somebody's attention, there's a little notification that's gonna pop up if you use the @ symbol, and then your teammate's name. Amy?
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think that's good. Just a couple other notes that have been coming in. So for example, a lot of these are free right now. Some of them are free for a certain amount of time. Again, I have no control over these companies, so I would say find the one that works best for you and use that. If you are with certain organizations, I know, for example, like the state, DCEO and sister agencies of the state use WebEx, and that's a great platform. A lot of the educational entities use Zoom. A lot of businesses use the GoTo platforms, and then Google has been used on all different kinds of both across the spectrum. So find what works for you, find what your institution will allow you to use, or your business or your company will allow you to use. We just wanted to give you a full showing of what was available out there. Moving forward, we do have next week tips for leading a virtual team. So as you are a leader in a virtual space, what are those things you should be doing? What are those things that we recommend you don't do based on the research? These are not just Jennifer and Amy's great ideas. And then we'll come back again on Wednesday, April 8th, and we'll talk about bringing your best self to the virtual workplace. So there were some fun little things shared about how you can be professional on top and still have your like work pants on, workout pants on or something, or wear slippers all day. That's fantastic. And we'll talk about those things on the 8th. We invite you to go to our website. You can register for these webinars. We're also sending out this information on our WIOA Wednesday, our WIOA Professional Development Constant Contact that goes out every Wednesday. If you're not a member of that, we'll send that along so you can sign up to be a part of the Wednesday webinar and the WIOA Summit and all that information. And with that, I'd like to just thank everyone for a great webinar. And do you have any closing comments, Jen? Oh, yes, resources. Go ahead.
Amy was just doing the coming attractions. At the very end of these slides, we have 2 additional slides with even more hyperlinks. Again, we were reviewing and compiling all of these so you don't have to. And this slide deck will be turned into a PDF tip sheet that will be on the webinar, as Amy mentioned. If you really want to go crazy, here are some sites that might be worth bookmarking or keeping up with if you're interested in remote work. And probably the final point is, hopefully this won't last forever, right? This is an unusual time, but it is worth, getting up to speed as quickly as you can so you can be as productive as possible during this time.
Excellent. Thank you all, and we wish you well, and stay healthy and wash your hands and all that good stuff, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.